So I'm going to start off part 31. Welcome to part 31 of the Forster Andrews 1865 pipe organ installation at Tango Towers, and of course restoration. So if those of you who've been following from the beginning, we started with the bellows, we've done all the action, we've done the soundboards, and a lot of this is now playable. So we've now got the open diapason in, apart from 5 notes which are in the left hand tower. There's 3 front pipes and there's 2 wooden pipes behind on the pedal chest yet to be overhauled and installed. So the right hand side is finished, we're putting in the pneumatic tubing, and we're about to start on rebuilding the pneumatic touch box for the pedal board. The parts came the other day, and so did the bill for 230 quid plus VAT. So we have, because we've been able to put the rest of the tuning slides on the open diapason, it meant that we could put the rest of the open diapason front pipes in, other than those 5 I mentioned. So that's in, tuned and regulated. So we've got the open diapason, the stop diapason, the bell gamba is now in, so it just leaves the 4-foot flute and the 15th. The 15th is the ranker pipes I had made brand new for this organ. So we're going to get on with the touch box. So really all we have to do is the touch box, the pedal board, the left hand pedal chest, and then cleaning the 4-foot flute, and then fitting in the brand new 15th. Now those 2 stops, the 4-foot flute and the 15th, share the same position on the soundboard. The 15th is nearest the passage board, and the 4-foot flute is one back, so we haven't cleaned that yet. We'll have to have that on the bench, and it'll have to be fitted properly. So here we go over to this bench. I think we're now in the last 6 or 8 weeks of this job. I need to get this building turned from a workshop into what it's supposed to be. Right, so we have here the touch box, and you saw me dismantle that on a previous video. So I decided to change all the valves, all the wires. We got 2 or 3 bent wires. When I came to take those bent wires out, I discovered that the thread which had been used was not an organ building thread, it was more of a machine screw thread, and that to me isn't acceptable. So with that, with the £230 bill that came with it, we've had all new wires made and all new felts and things. So these are going to get, I'm just going to cut them out. We'll be putting new buttons on. Let's go over to the box of parts. So we've got these pallets, are a little bit thicker than the previous ones. It really doesn't matter. We've got fiberboard discs. We've got springs. These are intended for key springs, for when you're doing electrifications of key action and another type. So that's what we got for our 230 quid, plus these custom manufactured threaded wires, which have, let's see whether we can see that. I'm just going to zoom in such a way that you can see it's plain, threaded, plain and threaded. So it's so that we haven't got threaded going through the actual hole, so there's nothing for it to catch on. So I'm going to photograph these carefully, and just so I can put them back the right way, and then we're just going to cut them off, and we're discarding all the materials. So at this point I've taken all the old valves out and I've cleaned it off. I think we'll just vacuum those holes out just in case. Hoping not to vacuum any of those leathers up, they're absolutely fine. So now we'll set about making up some new ones. So I've left the leather buttons on that. So what we're basically going to do is replicate 30 of those. So the things to note about these, I've done the first 20 out of the 30. First of all, I've run through the leather buttons with, let's find, make sure that's actually in shot, with a 1.8mm drill. There we go, the leather buttons. So got a 1.8mm drill bit out, and I've run through those with a cordless drill because sometimes these can be a bit too tight. These are tighter than the ones that we're on. I'm not sure that they've not used second-hand. Some of these are stupidly slack, but then there we go. You know, I know it's 1984 and it's nearly 40 years, isn't it? So what I've done is to replicate one of these. So I've used that one as my sample. They're all going to be pretty much the same, and the valves positions will have to be adjusted individually. Now, there's a flat side to these buttons and there's a domed side to the buttons, and you'll see that on this it's domed to domed in that centre. And so all these have gone on domed to domed, and I've actually put them all on from this end, and I've popped them in the chuck of my cordless drill to make this so much easier. You need to be putting tallow on this end, and then you can run the drill with the thing in your hand, with the button in your hand, and do it so much quicker. We were allowed to, when I did my apprenticeship, we were allowed to use a hand cranked drill, not an electric one. He only had one electric drill in the entire workshop other than the vertical pillar drill, and it was the 1930s, and it had a 1/4-inch chuck, you know. So even today the most cheapest of electric drills has a 10mm truck, which is 3/8 of an inch chuck. So it's so much quicker doing it this way. So that is the first 20. I've made sure we've got a point on both ends. I did order these without a point because they charge you. And being a tight-fisted Yorkshireman, it takes 2 seconds to put a point on the grinder, so I haven't. So that's where we are, 20 out of 30. So I will carry on. About a week later, because it's very time-consuming to do, all these valves have been made. So we've got new wires, new buttons. I've reused to the most part, the leather washers they'd put on. So the top valves are new. These lower ones, absolutely perfect. So I've recovered those instead of making new ones. I did buy the materials in, but there's no reason to make those. We'll just put them into stock. So that's all 30 are for those valves now put in. So the idea, if we can see that on camera, is that the one closes, the other opens, and so on. So we've got this spacing hopefully correct, because you've got no way of telling except by taking out and carefully measuring. And I'll show you what if I did that. These photos as it was being dismantled, so I did it in inches, I did it in centimetres, so that we can, you know, one of the things, I don't do things all inches, I don't do things all metric. I have a tendency to use inches where possible. But you know what, if you've got a piece of wood and it's 12 inches long and you need to cut it in half, well, you'll cut it in at the 6-inch point. But if I have a piece of wood and it happens to be 40 centimetres long, I'll cut it at the 20 centimetre point. So I just use both as necessary. This happened to be, the spacing was 2 centimetres plus a bit, and that's how it worked out. So I took these photos, I did that in inches if it worked out better in inches. We looked at the valves on the far side, which is that side, before I took it apart. And of course this is why we've done it, because of the moth damage to the felt, even though it was done in 84. And on that photo you can really see they've been chomping away at that. And there's that possibility that although there's a piece of leather there against the piece of leather on the timber, because that's lost its integrity, chances are that that's going to start leaking. Plus the fact that they got bent one way or the other. So there we are. So that's the photos. Oh, there's one more. Oh yeah, back to the measure. So the next thing I've got to do is to fit the springs, because this returns. Yes, the springs on this side. So what I've done, the springs we took out. The springs we took out are those, and the springs I've bought are these, and they're intended for the back of keys. When you're putting an organ on electric action, which has previously been on, say, mechanical action, because the key touch, in other words, when you press a note, the fact it's got depth, the key touch is done by the springs in the soundboard, which I've shown you all that. But if you've got a keyboard which isn't connected to any action, of course, it's not going to do anything. So you have to have return springs, and they are intended to convert keyboards to, say, electric action. So it's just a matter of bending these and working out the kind of force we need to set it to. But I felt that was the nearest product that I could buy. So these are corroded and some of them have snapped off. So what I'm going to do, we'll start putting that together. So we're just moving now to the base end pedal chest. I didn't show this in detail. I ended up having to make a new eye there because it was broken away. So we've cleaned all the pallets, we've greased all the steady pins, and everything is painted and ready to put back together with the pneumatic action. And I'm kind of going a stage further because what I didn't show is what I've actually spent 3 weeks doing, which is this touch box. So I'll pull that down carefully and just make sure it's in frame. So I modified this dramatically. The springs that were in it, we've changed the type of spring, which is what we can get and adjust. So we've had to expand the depth of the well of this to take the different works that I've had to put in. So now we've got these pieces of black leaded doweling going through a register. It's the original register, but expanded to take the doweling. So now, hopefully, they work and return. So that got a lot of time put into it. So the next course of action is to fit the pneumatics back. We've already checked that these are working. Just going to finish cleaning them off, hook them back up, and hopefully that's another thing that wants painting. So I wanted to get this part 31 of the video out, but I wanted to demonstrate the touch box, which we've just shown you, working on the right hand pedal chest. But unfortunately its wind supply comes from this left hand pedal chest. So until we've got that up and running, we can't do that. So we're not going to show it working, which is a shame. So come back to this in a bit. Right, so that's all back together. So there's 3 or 4 new wires between the motors, the leather white things. These are pneumatic motors, and because it's upside down, I did notice there was 2 cracks there. They've been filled in with cobbler's wax. So that's ready to be installed, and that'll be the next stage. Right, so this is the biggest pipe in the organ. It's the bottom C on the 16-foot Bourdon. So it has a speaking length of 8 feet. It's actually about 10, 11 feet in length. It's quite a width. So we'll be putting that in next. That's been cleaned, painted and overhauled. So as we draw this part number 31 to a close, the 2 pipes we can see there are the bottom 2 notes on the C side of the open diapason, the ones that don't go on the front pipes, which will be there. So you've got C, D, E, F sharp, G. So once we've done these, we can spray the 3 final front pipes and put them in. But there's something more important, and I'll come to that. So we've got, I've had to take the cap off this, and it's actually snapped in taking it off. Just bring this viewfinder out so I can see what I'm doing. So this has had to be glued. I used a modern adhesive and clamped, and then next time we've got a brush with some black paint on, I'll go back over this again. So we've got the two original screws here, and then we've got a new screw the same size, and the last thing to do is to put this cap on. So with my grease pot handy, once the cap was off, I was able to remove what was left of the screw satisfactorily, whereas two of them on this organ have broken off, and we've had to drill down the side. So they're all greased. Let's get a screwdriver. Right, well, I'll go and put the blower on. So bearing in mind we'll still have some wimpers. So on the other side, oh, it says that's the one I've just done. That's the one next to it. Slightly slow to speak. The other side. So some of those are on front pipes that aren't in. Good. So we've got two more notes installed. So on the grate, that's, and then with its principal, so it's sounding quite nice, especially if it was in tune. We've done the tuning enough for doing the regulation, but you're not the tuning out when you're doing the regulation. We're still bashing the organ around, of course. So what I'm doing, I'm not going any further with this pedal chest because of what I'm now going to say. Tomorrow is Monday. It's the Holy Week leading up to Good Friday, and the vicar has asked me to connect up to Zoom and join the meeting from here, and she wants me to play the organ from here. So this is going to be the first time it's actually going to be used in a remote church service. So that's what an organ's for. That's what I've got these here for. So we're going to now, I'll just move the camera around. So your swell's on the left, the grate's on the right. You've got these two slides with no pipes in yet. The one to the right here is the 4-foot flute, and the one here nearest the passage board is the brand new 15th we've had made, replacing a Dulciana which had been put on stupidly in the 1920s, and obviously removing the original 15th. So we had this 15th made just so. I'm telling you this because what we're going to do, we'll abandon the pedals chest, we'll get on with that, and I'll tell you what, by the time we get to Good Friday, chances are that 4-foot flute will be in and working. So that's what we're going to do. And because they're both attached, both the 15th and the 4-foot flute are attached to the same upper board and therefore the same rack board, we've kind of got to do them together. So we're going to set up the that upper board and the rack board on the table. That'll be the start of part 32, and we'll start altering the rack board so that we can fit the 15th. Once we've got that fitting, we put the 15th back in its box, put all this back together and put the 4-foot flute in. I'm not going to put the 15th in the organ until everything's tuned, because with me being the size I am, it's going to be difficult to work up there with that. I'll be touching it with my bottom and knocking things out of tune. So we'll leave that till the end. So there we are, very satisfactory, but we're just going to do things a slightly different way, just so that we get a little bit more for this Holy Week Zoom meeting. There's that pedal chest we put in. There's that biggest pipe, which is actually in, which is the bottom C pedal Bourdon. and the one we've just fitted the cap to is the one to the right. So there you go, we'll leave it at that. I'll just change the shock to the front. Thanks for watching part 31.